Welcome to The Love Life. I'm Dr. Margaret, and today's episode, I'm so excited because I'm going to talk about one of my favorite topics, creativity. One day, a few years ago, I ran into a friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while. We talked for a little while, and she eventually asked me about my love life. Well, I knew what she was asking me. And any other time, I would have said, "Oh, girl, I'm still single." But at that moment, something clicked. While I was not in a romantic relationship, my life was certainly not void of love. There's an abundance of ways that my heart, soul, and life are full of and overflowing with love. Welcome to The Love Life. I'm Dr. Margaret, and on this show, I talk to some incredibly loving people about what that big four-letter word means to them. So join us as we explore the question, how's your love life? Welcome to The Love Life. I'm Dr. Margaret. I believe that we were created to create. That ultimately, if we are created in the image of a divine creator, that we are also creators. And so I think that when we tap into a life of love, we ultimately learn what it means to be creative and to live into that creativity. Now, no, we were not all created to make a livelihood from creating art, but every day, many of us find the most creative ways to survive, to live, and to cope with this world. But there are some people who passionately and professionally use their creativity to create love through various media. And so today I'm honored and excited to speak with three, not one, y'all. I got three creatives about how they live their most creative love lives. And so my guests today are Miya Bryant, who is a visual artist, Stacy Utley, who is a mixed media artist, and Quay Weston, who is a creative in education, art, and tech. And I'm really excited to invite them to The Love Life. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Glad to
you.
be here. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So I want to first ask each one of you to just share a little bit about yourself. So if there's anything that you want to add to what I've shared about the type of artist you are, just who you are in general, so please share. And then I want you to think about an answer to the question, how's your love life? So who wants to go first?
I'll be glad to. That's fine. Peace. I'm Quay Weston again. Um, I am a. I always change it every time I tell people, but I consider myself a Afro technologist these days. I've worked in education spaces, in STEM programs, other nonprofits, but I've really found love and passion in creating and design. Also, now I'm a senior designer for some like web applications and software, and then all around community organizer still. Education focused, very community and youth oriented as well. So I'll start there.
Yeah, thank you, Quay. Welcome to The Love Life.
Yeah. I'm thinking on the second question though.
Take your time. Take your time. We got a little bit of time. Miya, Stacy.
Sure, I'll jump in. My name is Stacy Utley. I am an artist. I am a mixed media artist. I'm also, I guess, kind of like Quay. I'm educator as well, art teacher, and I'm also a public artist. For me, art has always kind of been a part of my life since I can remember. My father being an artist, my uncle being an artist, and so it's always just kind of been part of who I was. So I knew I was always going to work in the creative vein, and it's a process to get there, which I'm sure we'll probably talk about a little bit, just for everybody being a creative. But I'm enjoying life right now, and I guess to answer that question, my love life is good now.
Okay. We're gonna dig into it a little
Right.
bit.
We're gonna dive deeper.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Good, good. Miya.
Hey, I'm Miya Bryant. I'd say that I've always loved painting. I use acrylics. I love using the bigger brushes and a bigger canvas. I just feel like I can kind of express myself better through it that way. And recently, I think a lot of people have been doing this, but especially in 2020, kind of just sat down and thought about what my wildest dream would be. And being an artist was the craziest thing that I thought could never happen. So I said, I love art. I love painting. It seems like people love my art. And so, you know, try to make a go at it. And hopefully that'll be my full time soon enough.
Yeah, and I just want to say I love your art. I was gifted a piece by you for the holidays, and it's not on my art wall back here, but I do have it in my office upstairs, and so it gets lots of compliments on my Zoom calls. Just
Thank you.
FYI.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, the thing about the Love Life, this show, is we're expanding this conversation of love. And, we're not excluding romantic love, but we are saying that love and a love life is so much bigger than romance. It's so much more expansive than a conversation about romance. And so I asked that question, how's your love life? Because I think as creatives, as people who use their creativity every day, that there has to be some sort of love that's generating, right? That you're generating through your art and that you're also tapping into as you create.
Mhm.
So let's go back to that question. How's your love life? Quay, I want to hear from you. How's
Okay.
your love life?
My love life is strong right now. It is booming and bunking, as they say. My marriage and partnership is going well. My friendships, my engagement with like community groups and organizations, and like the things I'm learning and like trying. I'm really tapping into more of the love muscle these days. And leaning into like all the ways that love can find me, and being open to that. That's something that's really happening this year. So I say it's thriving. My love life is pretty nice.
It's booming.
It's booming. It's booming. It's booming.
Overflowing. Overflowing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Pun intended.
Right.
What about you, Stacy? So tell us a little bit more about your love life.
So I would say right now, my love life, I'm very full. And I never thought I would ever say that, but yeah, I think that's the only way I can kind of describe it. Because for me, it's been a journey to get to this place where I am now. For me, I started out working as an architect, and I love architecture, but I was not happy with the type of architecture I was doing, the 9 to 5. And like so many people, I found myself in 2008, getting laid off from work. And it's kind of one of those times where you have that opportunity in front of you to decide where you want to be. And I've always loved art, and I've always wanted a career in art, but I didn't know how to do it because, of course, you hear, you're not going to make any money. So, but, talking to my wife at that time, she was just like, if you want to go after your, dream, this is the time to do it. This is a good time to kind of reset, use this opportunity as a time to reset and go in the direction that you want to go in. And, one of my prayer was that if I go into this direction, I did not want my family to have to want for anything, because I don't want to be that person that goes after my dream and then other people have to suffer because of that. And it ended up being one of the best decisions of my life, going back to grad school to get my MFA, to start teaching, to have a career now in the arts where I'm able to teach and be around young people that really, truly love the arts and want to ask me about it and want to go in that direction. And myself having that experience, I can guide them that way, and tell them not to make the mistakes that I made. To be able to have a studio, to be able to paint, to be able to do shows, to be able to go back to architecture and doing public art and doing it the way that I want to do it. It's an awesome and it's a very humbling feeling, and I don't take it for granted. I appreciate every day where I'm at right now, and I'm really loving it. To have my family a part of it, to have my friends a part of it. to kind of keep meeting people and seeing the doors that it opens up, opportunities like this. So I'm really, really happy where I'm at right now in my life. And it's crazy when you think back of the journey, you know, you understand why some things happened the way they had to happen in order for you to get to where you are now. And you understand the lessons and everything that you got from that in order to get to where you got now. So it's I'm very happy. My life is good. It's full. It's very good.
I love it. The love life is full.
It's full.
Overflowing and full. We got a theme here. We got a come on and bring it home, Miya. Bring it home. How's your love life?
I'd say it's pretty good right now, and I think full is probably a pretty good description. I think when I'm creating, I think I feel a lot of love, just kind of like a feeling of warmth and belonging. And anytime that I'm able to kind of get to a place when I'm creating and I'm not really thinking about it, it just feels like it's happening without me. Just without thinking about it. It's just, you know, this love and this kind of expression coming out of me. It's just a really great feeling. And I think full is a good description because I just announced that I'm pregnant. So kind of, you know, creating, thank you, creating more life and more love. And, you know, intentionally this was a planned pregnancy, but other than that, you know, I'm eating and then my body's just creating. And that's really good.
You're growing a whole life.
Yeah. So I'm in a pretty good place right now.
That's good. Beautiful. That's
congratulations.
Good. Yes, yeah, congratulations. So I want to speak a little bit about why I chose the three of you for this episode, if I may. So on my very first episode of The Love Life, I spoke with Pamela Thompson, who was one of my first guests. Shout out to Pamela for dropping so many gems on that episode. But one of the things that has stuck with me from that episode is that love pursues. She talks about how she pursues people because she sees something in them that she wants to just have in her life. And so she goes after it. And I've been sitting with that thought, like love pursues, love pursues. And in each of your lives, the way you use your creativity, I see you pursuing love through your work. I see you pursuing passion. I see you pursuing, like Stacy, you're a public artist. I love that you create art for the public, and I love that you are a traditional artist in terms of doing gallery work. And I love that you're a teacher, right? Because those are all ways that we pursue love, that we create love through our pursuit, right? Miya, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so great about art. I want to be an artist. I'm going to do it. And you did it. And you're still working full time, right? Because I know how that is to have this passion that you're kind of seeing as your side boo, but it's really your main boo. And you're trying to figure out how to keep it on the side, but it's slowly creeping and becoming more important to you, right? And so I'm journeying with you, and I can't wait to see you like launch out and do art full time as your passion. And then Quay, you're creative in this very unique way, right? Even the way that you dream, the way you envision. You and I have had conversations about Afro-futuristic worlds that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
That's creativity. That's art. And so when I think about creating love and being an artist, I think about all of those things. And so I want to know, how is your creativity inspired by love, inspired by your love life? How do you tap into love to cultivate your creativity? And y'all can take a breath, because I know that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think I got the answer well, at least for me. So I think for me, and everybody's different with how they create. But I think for me, I have to have certain things kind of set up to be able to create. one of the things I did was I had my studio at home, and I wanted to be one of those artists that had like a studio somewhere else. Because there was a thing to do to have your studio somewhere else, and I had that, and it was crazy. I could not really create anything while I was in that studio, and I could not figure out why that was. But I remember when I first started going on this journey, I had my studio at home. It was guest bedroom, and I remember my kids would wake up in the middle of the night and they would come in and fall asleep under the easel while I was painting. And then I remember when they would get their little art sets, they would come in there and start drawing while I was doing it. I know they're like teenagers now, don't want to have nothing to do with me, but I remember that. I got pictures to prove it. And so I remember, and then when we moved, and I brought my studio home, thankfully, right before COVID. I have like artwork in there that I bought from friends or traded with friends. I have my music in there. When my grandmother passed, I got all of her jazz records. So I have that in there. So I think for me, it's like, I got to be in a place where I can completely just zone out. And I'm finding myself, I'm tapping into these things that I love that are kind of inspiring me. Even when I'm in there painting, a lot of times I'm chatting with friends on IG that are artists, and I'm like showing them what I'm doing and stuff like that, and they're kind of chatting back. So for me, it's about the space that I'm in. And it's crazy because I remember when I was working as an architect, like I hated going back to the office at night, working till like 5 a.m. on a project. But here I have to force myself to go to bed because, as an artist, sometimes it hits you. When it hits you, you gotta move. You gotta get up and sketch out that idea. You gotta paint it. You gotta put down at least one layer or prime the board or something to kind of get it moving. And I just love that feeling. And I think for me, that's how I tap into it, because it's all about space. And when I'm in that space, I'm thinking about certain people, I'm talking to certain people, or certain people kind of come into that space and they feel safe coming in there, or I invite them to come in. But for me, it's about space. And I think that's how I kind of tap into love, because when it comes to my work, because I'm feeling good and I'm not feeling, I'm feeling everything and nothing at all. No stress or nothing. I'm just doing me. Even when I'm not painting, I'm just sitting in there, thumbing through a sketchbook or whatever. And, so I think for me, it's about the space and what's invited into that space. For me, that's how I kind of tap into love.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Spaces can often be draining,
Yeah.
Or spaces can be inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Miya, what about you? If you're ready, I want to hear from you with the question.
Yeah, I think so. So even when I first started, I guess, doing art or wanting to be creative, it just kind of started of wanting to be able to give gifts to people. And art supplies can get pretty expensive, but you can also get pretty cheap stuff. And so we kind of always had cheap art supplies. My mom and my dad are pretty creative. And so I just remember for every birthday, Mother's Day, Christmas, I would just always create something or make like little books and stuff. For my siblings, for my parents, for whoever I could give art to. And so kind of as time passed on, I kind of kept doing that. And I actually kind of halted me in my creative process, because I kind of got to a point where I was putting a lot of time and energy into these pieces, and they were gifts, and it felt like gifts to give to people that I loved. But I also wasn't kind of receiving anything in return. I was just kind of giving away all this art for free. And so at a certain point, once I started using more expensive equipment and tools and art supplies, and also putting more time into it, it was a gift of love, but then it became a little bit more draining for me. And so I actually stopped for a little bit. And so now where I'm in this place where I can, obviously still create and give gifts to people that I love, but also still, I think, kind of place value and worth in my art, and do that for myself and not let other people put that, on my art. And putting that value and self-love and worth into my art is, I would say that's kind of how love has influenced it, that it's still a gift that I'm able to give people, but, gifts aren't free.
And it's also a gift you're giving back to yourself too, right? To value your work and to put it out there for others to to receive in that way. And I also see what you're saying is like love was your launching pad, you know? So a launching pad, you're not going to keep coming back to the launching pad. Like you're going to keep moving forward. So that's a really beautiful observation. Quay.
Yeah. To both the points that Miya and friend here also shared, it is like, I think for me, love is love to me means like you're committed to like caring, usually about a person or a thing. And I think just growing up, my art and the things that I made were ways to like show care for other people. Like I would make little cards and like write little songs for people and write these letters and do all this little cool stuff, I guess you would call it. So when I make things, that's kind of how I demonstrate care, but also it helps me like keep moments. I think like I can look at something I made and be like, oh, I was in this place mentally when I made this. I was at this place. I remember where I was sitting. I remember what I was listening to. It like takes all of that experience and like puts it into a thing that I can kind of reflect on and go back to. And I think the way that I learned love from like my family and my great grandmother particularly, she just had like these little trinkets of little moments that she would not really talk about the thing she had, but she would talk about the moment that she got it or who gave it to her or where she was. And I think I've done the same thing with the things I create is trying to like hold on to moments and also like show care to people when I make things for them or even for myself. It's just like an act of care and love again to me.
Yeah, what's so good about what each of you said is that you shared a story, right? And I think that story often is what helps us to remember. You know, when you think about the word remember, it actually means to come back to yourself or your members to come together. So I see like our creativity and the things that we create as a way for us to remember, to always come back to ourselves. And, you know, story is attached to that. So when we're being creative, we're actually writing a story. We're telling a story.
Right.
Oh, this is so good.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So as creative people, you all create various things. You create with your words, you create with your visual art, you create with your vision. But for what or whom do you create? So who are you creating for when you create new things or you make art? Like who are you doing it for?
I'd be glad to start if that's cool.
Yeah, sure.
I I think I create a lot for myself. Not in like a selfish way, but like to get something out or share a new idea or share something I've been reading or thinking about, and want to engage with people around. And also I think I create for anyone that is connected to me or knows me, because I'm really big on like collaboration and like hoping to open up some like form of radical imagination. So I think when I put out things, it's always like a, what do you think about this? Because I want to hear the responses to like be able to engage further about it. So yeah, a bit for myself and then a bit for others in hopes of like really connecting and engaging around particular thoughts or topics or
It's an
all those
invitation.
things. Yes, absolutely.
An invitation
Absolutely.
into your head.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think you may have been reading my notes because I think first and foremost, I create for myself to be able to, I think, kind of as you guys said before, hold moments of time, but also to be able to work through different experiences that I'm going through, and kind of put that into a piece and be able to look back at that and say, okay, that's where I was. And I think even, as I look at art, there are new things that I see every time, even though, I'm the one who is created it, or even just my perspective of it. So being able to express myself and also just, I guess, learn things about myself. I wouldn't say I'm great with words. And so art is more of a way for me to be able to express myself and kind of seeing what comes out of being like, oh, okay, that's what I was trying to do. And it's great. I guess it's that, I don't know if it's a cheesy saying, but they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And it's always so interesting when they're like, oh, I love this. Oh, is this about this? Or do you see this? Or, whatever it is they might see. And I usually just kind of go ahead with whatever people see. That I'm not going to tell them that that's not what it is, because, once I create it and I put it out there, it's done the work for me, and it's going to continue to do the work for me as I'm able to study it, keep it in my home, or even as I, sell it. And now it can help other people through different moments in time.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah, to really kind of echo both of them, it's really for myself, because it's things that I'm internalizing or thinking or processing, and usually if it's something that I'm kind of processing, I'm hoping that as I work my way through it in the art, it will help somebody else when they look at it. Art kind of creates conversation, and whether or not you may be going through the same thing as the viewer, it can create some kind of dialogue where you guys can kind of like have shared experiences or conversations about it. I don't really do commissions anymore, unless somebody says, hey, do whatever you want and I'm cool with it, then I can do that. Because I found whenever I do commissions, it's like, you're gonna get a piece, but I'm not gonna be feeling it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna do it for you, and it will be cool, but it will be just that. And some of them is just like I don't even have any attachment to it. But if it's for me or if it's something I'm passionate about, I'm gonna put my elbow in it. I'm gonna get in it. And so that's for me, it's kind of like when you're creating for somebody else and not for yourself, it's like false passion. Like you don't feel the same about it. And so I have to be passionate about what I'm doing, which is interesting because I also do public art. And when you do public art, I always say when I go after a public art project and I'm interviewing, I say that at the end of the day, I'm just kind of like the vessel. This is for the community, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to walk past this. They're going to have to catch the bus in front of it. They're going to have to interact with it. And I like telling stories, and I like giving some type of visual to somebody else's story in that context. Because a lot of times when we do public art, I try to be specific about what public art projects we go after. And a lot of times it's in communities that are being gentrified. And what I always try to do is community engagement is important. And so I like to hear from people who have been in that community, whether they've been there for 5 months or 50 years. Because you need to understand, for me, I feel like if you're going to move in that community, you need to understand like the shoulders and the shoulders that you're standing on. You understand why that community is important and what the history of that community is. And so I like to get together and like just kind of hear stories from the community. We're working on a project now, and we got to talk to Dorothy Count Scoggins. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with who she is. She integrated Harding High School here. And if you Google her, you'll see her walking to school and people spitting on her and yelling and all those kinds of things. But you hear that story and it's like, okay, this woman's story needs to be told and it needs to be shared within the community. And so I'm passionate about that. So I like creating public art for a community where we're kind of creating a broader story and we're getting all these different points of view. I hope I make that makes sense, because
it totally does.
Okay, yeah. So
and Harding High is in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where you are based.
Yep, exactly. So yeah.
Yep.
So when it's certain things that I do, it's for me, like painting or collaging or mixed media, that's for me. But when I do community service, it in a way it's still for me, because I'm passionate about telling other people's stories in that regard. So
yeah, the story is so important. And what's interesting, I love that you all answered that question that way, that you make it for yourself first, that you create for yourself first. Because even if you think about self-love, for example, it's really difficult to love someone else unless you love yourself. And you can also look at your creative practice, your practice of art, as a self-love practice. right?
Right.
Like you all have described what it does for you to make art and then to share it with other people. And
Mhm.
that's a bit of a self-love practice. So speaking of practices, what love practices are involved as you create? So we think about, how do we know that people love you, right? They take care of you, they spend time with you, for example. So what are the practices of love that are involved in your creative life?
As it pertains to other people loving us, correct?
No, like
Um,
this is for you in terms of like as you create, what practices of love show up in your creativity? I'll give
okay.
you an example for me. So, one of the things that I have to do when I'm writing or when I'm like creating this show, for example,
Mhm.
is I have to like take care of myself.
Mhm.
I have to be present to myself and my needs and understand why I'm doing a thing, right? Make sure I'm in a good space emotionally. And that helps me to ground myself and to show up as myself when I'm here or when I'm writing. So for you, what does that look like in terms of when you create? What are the practices of love that are helping to mediate that experience for you, if that makes sense?
Yeah,
I go deep. I go deep.
Okay.
Mia.
I think for me, a lot of the things are kind of just simple, practical things of washing my palette knives and my brushes when I'm done painting so that the next time I come to the space, it's already clean. So if I have an idea, if I'm already in the mood to paint, that I can just come in and do that. And also just keeping my space clean and kind of respecting the room that I paint in. And I think just always meditating before I start working, I've just realized that helps me be calm, helps me kind of get out of my head, I guess, into my heart, and just be able to focus and kind of have that space for myself. And even if it's like, okay, I'm only going to paint for 10 minutes, but always being like, these are the things I really care about. And so, um, making the time for that, even if that does mean I have to spend a couple extra minutes, cleaning up or doing something instead of, kind of doing something that's easy, like
Mhm.
watching TV, which is really going to fill me up the way that creating will.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Quay, you look like you got an answer ready.
Oh no, just getting my mind right, staying hydrated, having quiet,
Moisturize.
moisturizing, making sure my hands feel good. Yeah, listening to myself, not trying to make it have to be something. So like creating things just to create them, not like, oh, this has to make me money, and not forcing that on the
Right.
thing and to just make it and let it be what it is.
Do it for the love.
Yeah.
Right.
That was actually what I was going to say, not to force it. I mean, sometimes I go in my studio, I don't do anything. Because if I'm not feeling it, then I just kind of I got books in there, music is in there, or I'm just in there like going through, old sketches and see where I was. Because it's like a journal in a way, like Quay said, you find something and you realize you did it 10 years ago and you're like, whew, I was in that place, you know. But yeah, I don't force the process anymore. I allow it to work how it's supposed to work, and it's crazy when it does when you do that because you're surprised what you can create. Like I could force something and it would take me 3 to 4 months to do a series, but if I'm feeling it, I can knock that series out in like a week and a half. So it's just don't force it. Trust yourself, and I think as a creative, it takes a while to kind of get to that place.
Yeah,
For me, it did anyway. But
yeah,
now that I'm there, I just don't force it, and I trust. I trust. It's very cliche, but I definitely trust the process.
yeah. And I think everything that y'all have just named are love practices, right? They're practices that show up as you loving yourself and you loving your art and you
Right.
loving your creativity enough to clean off your brushes, to stay hydrated, and to not force it, right? Like
Mhm.
those are all practices of love. So I just want to say thank you, Miya, Stacy, Quay, for joining me on this episode of The Love Life. We could talk for a long time about this because I love art. I love creativity. I think all of us were created to create. And so I just applaud you all for living your best creative life. And we're going to share with our audience where they can find you on all the interwebs and how they can stay connected to you. And we're also going to share a little bit of what y'all create. So
Sure.
I'm excited about this episode. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure meeting y'all. This was
Same
fire.
here.
Wow, what a beautiful episode of The Love Life. I'm so grateful to Miya, Stacy, and Quay for having a conversation with me about creativity. And I just want to encourage you all that if you don't see yourself as an artist, if you don't see yourself as a creative, I would just implore you to tap into that creative spirit, to get inspired, to walk around a museum when it's safe, to look at public art, to tap into your digital creative mind, to write, to explore, but just to be inspired enough to say that I am a creator, I am an artist, and I was created to create. So I'm Dr. Margaret, and until next time, please live a life of love and love the life you live.